Testing, testing. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Filling the auditorium.
Yeah.
Feel a little silly using the microphone with this small group of people, but we want to make sure we're live streaming this event, or I should say we're recording this presentation to send out folks that weren't able to make it. I want to make sure that the folks at home are able to hear later on when you're watching. So, Action McCarroll from the School Counseling Office. I'm with my colleague, Cole Billcliff. And we have Lily O'Connor from the Center for College Planning, New Hampshire Higher Education Assistance Foundation. We work very closely with NHEAF on these presentations and other various types of events. They'll be helping us out in a couple of weeks with our I Am College Bound event. That's the one-day college application event where seniors can submit their college applications. All the schools in New Hampshire will waive their application fee on that day. It's a day to kind of celebrate continuing education. So prizes are given out during the day. It's kind of a fun event. And one student selected for a $500 scholarship at random. And they can get help from not just us, but admissions counselors from various colleges throughout the area to be on hand to review those applications and answer any last minute questions students might have. And so it's a good event for seniors and those of them that have seniors. Make sure to remind them to sign up for that. That's a link went out about a week ago to sign up for that. They'll be reminded throughout the next couple of weeks. But Lily's going to talk with you through the financial aid process, kind of looking at the nuts and bolts about filling out the FAFSA, and applying for financial aid to pay for college. I'll be paying extra special attention tonight as I'm going through the process for the first time as a parent. I've been doing this for many years as a guidance counselor. This is my first time doing as an actual parent filling out the FAFSA for my son. So, and we'll have time toward the end for question and answer.
Stop there.
Absolutely. If something is unclear, you want to put your hand up and ask away. Cool. Thank you, Timur.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'll hit the next slide. This is a QR code, so feel free to scan this. If you came to our last presentation that we have, you don't have to rescan it. This will get you on our mailing list just so you can get any updates there might be. You'll get some information after tonight's presentation as well, so feel free to scan that. So we are the Center for College Planning. We're located in Concord, New Hampshire. The next slide will kind of go over all the appointments that we have, but we do have virtual and in-person appointments. So whatever you're most comfortable with, if you are still struggling during this process or have questions on filling out your FAFSA or want us to do it with you, we have appointments for that. If your student still doesn't really know kind of what those next steps are, we have an appointment for that. We also have financial aid conversation, which we'll go over basically this whole presentation, plus whatever questions you have. And then we have, as we get into March, reviewing financial aid offer letters. So towards the end of this presentation, we will go over kind of what an offer letter looks like. But usually around that March time, so when you start to get a lot and you're like, what does this mean? We can help you kind of determine who's giving you the most aid and kind of funding options to pay for college. So we use a system called Calendly. So again, we will have a copy of this presentation so you can go back in and click on the links. But Calendly is a big calendar. You go in, pick your day and time that works best for you, and then you can either sign up for a virtual or an in-person appointment with us. Okay, so this presentation can be a little overwhelming, especially if it is your first time going through this process. This is a lot of information. You do not have to memorize any of this. Again, you will get tons of emails kind of with all this information. So kind of just absorb it. Don't get too stressed out. And again, we can answer any questions you may have. So what understanding financial aid? So the goal is obviously to help students pay for college. And how this is done is by filling out your FAFSA. And then this will see if you are eligible for any awards. There are a lot of changes coming within the FAFSA within the next few years. So like the EFC is now changing to SAI. So the EFC is a number that once you fill out your FAFSA, you will see this number listed. That is now changing. So this year, all of these will see EFC, but as you fill it out in prior years, it will be SAI. If you got any of our insiders from the guidance office that we sent over, they're all about
if you could do just this and this,
all
you
of the don't
break down.
on that. They're the same exact thing. You just are coming for the next year for that. But by filling out or getting your EFC, this allows the colleges to then use that as an index to determine how much financial aid students need and then how they can share that out in a fair and equal way. And there's two types of aid that you'll see that is starting to give out. So we have our gift aid. So this is your merit-based scholarships. So based on your student's high school portfolio. So if they're in sports, if they have their academic history, any leadership clubs, things like that could earn students merit-based aid at colleges. Not every college will have merit-based aid. So it is important that as you're going through your research or talking with admissions counselors as they come to the school, to see if merit-based aid is offered. Our second type of gift aid, and again, gift aid is that free money, is need-based grants. So the most common type is the Pell Grant. This you will see on, once you complete your FAFSA, you would know if you qualify for a Pell Grant. But grants can also come from the school as well to help cover the costs. And then we have our self-help aid. So these are your student federal loans. So every student who filled out the FAFSA is qualified for a student loan taken out in only the student's name. In the first year, that's $5,500. And about each year, it goes up about $1,000 after that. And then work study positions. So we will go over exactly what a work study is, kind of the pros to it and what to look for a little bit later on in the process. But this also is considered a type of financial aid. The only way you can qualify for the federal loans or work study is if you fill out the FAFSA. So I know there's sometimes a lot of misconception on the FAFSA, and parents sometimes don't want to put their information on it. It won't touch the parent's credit. It's solely for the student in order for them to receive the most aid they can get. So yes, there is a section where parents will fill out some financial information, but it will never tie to the parents unless they decide to take out a loan in their own name. And then things to start to consider. So if you haven't already, students, make sure that you have a non-school email. Around this time is when you will start kind of making your FAFSA account. You don't want that ever tied to a school email. You will use that year after year in college. You want to make sure you have access to that email. Also, again, just keeping everything in one place, because when it gets time for your financial aid offer letters and you're applying to colleges, you want to make sure you have access after you graduate high school. But things to also consider is having a money talk. If you haven't already, kind of sitting down as a family, discussing exactly what your family is willing to do in order for your student to go off to college. So maybe this is all on the student, or maybe you can give out maybe $5,000 for their first year. Just having this conversation, setting those expectations early on so that when you get to March or January, when you start to receive your financial aid offer letters, it shouldn't be a huge shock with that. So again, going through the schools, seeing what they offer for aid, and then also the tuition price. So I know this can be scary if you go on the website and you see those schools, $70,000. For the most part, students are not paying that full amount. So there are net price calculators where you can type in some information. You can see your personal financial information. You can see kind of what your aid could look like at this school. This means nothing. You still have to apply. You still have to fill out your FAFSA form, but it could give you an idea of what your package might look like. By law, every school has to have a net price calculator. So it is a good tool to kind of just do your research now to see if that's something that you and your family can afford. And then another thing to keep in mind is that once you earn these merit-based scholarships, there usually are GPA requirements. There might be other additional requirements to think of. I know you cannot see this picture here, or if you can, you have really good eyes. But it's just saying that at St. A's, they have a GPA requirement of a 2.2 to keep their merit scholarship. So usually the GPA requirements are pretty low and very manageable for students to keep this. They don't want to take away. Again, just something to keep in mind as you're going through this process. There will be requirements in order to keep your scholarships. And then how to apply for financial aid. So both of these applications are open. They opened up on October 1st. Some of you will only have to fill out one of them, and then some of you will have to do both. So everyone will do the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And then there's also the CSS profile. So that's in addition to the FAFSA. The CSS profile is usually required by schools that have a very large endowment. Usually they're more highly competitive schools. The only school in the state of New Hampshire that requires it is Dartmouth. So if your student's looking at Dartmouth, you will be filling out the CSS profile. But again, this is part of the process of doing the research now before you're applying, just to see exactly what the schools do require from you. Before COVID, we were kind of seeing that these deadlines were usually kind of far apart. Admissions, you apply maybe in November, but this wasn't due till March. That has changed a lot. So please make sure you're doing your research. A lot of them will be due on the same day. If you're applying early, usually now this is due a lot earlier as well. So it's so important that you do your research, figure out when to apply, and then also checking in with financial aid. Some students like to get a big calendar and write down all the days. Others like to, put them in their phones, or just find a way that works for you and your family, because there's a lot of deadlines that will be approaching very, very soon, and it can get overwhelming if you're not organized during this process. But again, just check with the schools. The CSS profile, you can go on their website and they have a list of every school that is requiring them. I think I sent you over a list as well. If not, I'll send you that so you can share that out. But it's not a ton of schools, but if it is, this does take a little bit of time. We do not help with the CSS profile, but if you have questions, we can always answer them for you. We just don't have meetings set up for those types of filling out. And then the goal of the FAFSA. So again, this is to collect your EFC. After this year, you'll start seeing SAI. They're the same thing. But this allows, again, the school to calculate how much financially to give out to their students. Who should file the FAFSA? We believe everyone should. This, again, use the thing of it as a safety blanket. Maybe your student isn't going off to college, but then come January, they change their mind. You already have this done. Or even if you don't think you'll qualify for anything, scholarships are now starting to require the FAFSA as part of their requirements. So just having it done now will just benefit you, just in case it comes up that you need it for something else. And then again, this is the only way that a student can earn or get any federal loans, any federal grants. So it is super important that you fill this out for your students so they can get that money. And then this process does have to be done every single year. Once their students enrolled in college, the deadlines are a little bit later, but again, check in with the school, see when those deadlines are, and just set a reminder to do that once a year. And then there are a lot of changes coming, but a lot of you will just save that for another day. But the big change that you will see is student aid index. Again, it's EFC, student aid index, same exact thing. Just know that this is a number. It's not what you owe. It's not in money. It's simply just a number that the schools will put into a calculation to determine how much financially you can get. So it scares some people when they see their EFCs. They're like, I can't afford that. Don't think of it as money. I know it's in numbers, but it's not a money form. And then to file your FAFSA, you will go to studentaid.gov. I want to warn you all with the loan forgiveness application that is out, and there's a lot of traffic on the site. It has been very, very slow. So if you go on the website and it says error, or sometimes once you log in, it'll keep bringing you back to the page that you logged in with. Just know it's probably not your account. It's probably the site's account. So it's issues, so come back at a different time. There also are a lot of scams going on with the student federal aid. So just know that you'll never have to pay to fill out an application. They'll never ask for your credit card information or anything like that. So if you are on one of those sites, just know you're probably on the wrong site, and to try to look for studentaid.gov with that. So we can help you fill this form out. You can come to us with just your username and password, and we will do the whole form with you. If for some reason your social security number wasn't verified, or you get locked out of your account and you can't get in, that is when you will have to call student aid. This number here is listed, but you can also go on their website. You can find a number to call as well. But just know we cannot help with the site itself. We can only help you fill out the form. And then an FSA ID. So every student will have to create an FSA ID. Parents, only one of you will have to create an ID. These IDs are just like any other username you would set up. They'll ask you for your name, your address. Then if you answer a few security questions, you create a username and password. Make sure you keep that safe and write it down somewhere because you will use that for as long as you're in college, and then if you have loans, as long as you hold those loans, you'll need this account information. So do something you'll remember. But with this is how students will log into the form. This is how you fill it out. This is how you will basically do everything you need to do. Parents, even though it's a student's application, you also need an FSA ID. So this allows you to go in for the parent section, type in your tax information. This also allows you to go in and fill it out for the student if that's something you're willing to do. We recommend students being involved, but again, some families make that decision that they don't want their students involved. So it really is a family decision there, but you will need your students' information for that. Another change that happened this year is that there is a two-step verification form. So every time a student logs in, they have to verify either their email or their cell phone number. So how this is done, you'll hit the button and it will send a code to either your email or to your cell phone. So if you're doing it for your student, make sure, or if you're coming to us and we're helping you, make sure you can access your students' either email or somehow call them, get the number, so that we can open their account. So this will happen every single time. Parents, if you have an account from a couple years ago, from whenever you did it, you won't have to, but any student who makes an account this fall will have to do a two-step verification process every time they log in. Another change that happened this year is that when you make your account, you will get a backup code. They will not let you leave the page until you hit a box that says, I've written this code down. But this code, write it down. But this code is going to allow you to get back into your account. If for some reason your cell phone no longer works, your email is not working, you have no idea what your security questions are, you can type in your backup code and it'll unlock your account so you can reset everything. So it is super important that you write that down and have that information just in case you ever need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
No, you can, so parent already has an account, you can use that account. It will not allow you to make another one. If you've already used your social to make an account, you can only have one account. So if you can't get into that account, either have the other parent make a new account with their social, or they'll have to call and have a nice long wait to get into your account. And there are really high wait times right now, just because of the student loan forgiveness and everyone trying to get into their account. So there's a lot of issues with the site itself too. If you ever see like a big blue dot that just takes up your whole page, it's just trying to load. So go back another day and save yourself no stress. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to do it before your deadlines, obviously. So the data retrieval tool, this is a great tool that if you are able to use it, I highly recommend using this. This will allow you to go into your 2021 tax information, which all of you will be using in order to fill out the FAFSA this year. It will grab all the information it needs and will put it into your student's account. So it is a good time saver. It helps with any mistakes you might make, and it's a very simple process. Again, we haven't seen a lot of issues with the data retrieval tool this year on the government side on their website. So just keep trying. If you know your address is correct and your information is all correct, it could just be the site. So maybe come back, try again the next day. But if it's still not working, there could be some reasons why you can't use it. So if you made any changes to your 2021 tax information after you got your returns back, you won't be able to use it. And your marital status changed from your 2021 tax information, and that could not allow you to use it, or change your address. So there are some reasons why, but for most of you, you should be able to use this tool with no problem. This also helps eliminate verification. So verification is a process that is done at the college level. It is a random select random process. So just know if you get selected for verification, it's a very common thing. Don't be scared. At that point, the school will give you step-by-step instructions on what you need to do, but essentially all they're looking for is your tax transcript. You'll download that and then send it off to the financial aid offices. Again, it is a standard practice that every college does, so if you're selected, don't be scared, it's very normal. All right, so whose FAFSA is it? It will always be the student's FAFSA. So obviously parents, you can log in as your student, you can help fill it out for your student. That is totally fine, but just make sure that you are looking at each section and seeing whose section you're in. So it will say student versus parent, but sometimes if you're just in the habit of doing it and you start filling it out, it can get confusing. So anytime it says you or yours, it's always asking about the student. Unless you're in that parent section, but that will say your mom, your dad. So just be very mindful of that as you're going through the application. When is the deadline? So New Hampshire doesn't have a state deadline, so it does vary from college to college. So as I said in the last couple of slides, just making sure you're checking in with your colleges to see when this is due. Tax year, we're using 2021 tax information to fill out this year's form. We use prior year. And then for parents who have more than one student in college, I do recommend going in as the parent. You can fill it out. There's an option that says I'm the parent and I want to fill out my FAFSA for my student. Log in as yourself, click on that button, fill it out, and then at the end, there is a one-time button that will appear on the side that says, do you want to transfer your information to another student? If you select that, it will transfer everything over for you and save you a little bit of time. But if you miss that button, it's okay. You'll just have to go through the process again with your other student. Students who are considered an independent student. This would be if a student, so even if maybe you don't claim your student on your taxes or you believe that they're an independent student, it's not always the case in the eyes of the FAFSA form. So this is typically students who are over the age of 24. If the student is grad school, if they have a dependent of their own, if they're at risk of being homeless, ever in the foster care over the age of 13, if they're serving active duty. So there are some ways that students at this age can be considered independent. If you have questions on that, you can always send us an email or come ask after to see if they would qualify as an independent student. And they will ask you some questions to determine this. There's not a button that you have to select, so they will kind of determine this for you. But just know that this could happen if you fit into one of those categories. And then who to include on your FAFSA form. So if your parents are divorced, but they still live together, both parents will be listed. If your parents are divorced or separated and don't live together, then whoever the student who's lived with the most out of the year is who the parent will list. If it is a fair 50-50 split, then whoever financially has more support over the child is who you will list on the FAFSA form. And if it truly is a 50-50 split, we do recommend sticking with one parent throughout the whole college experience. Don't go back and forth each year because it just affects your aid and you cannot really predict how much aid your student could get if the numbers keep changing every year. And then special circumstance form. So here are some examples listed up here. Obviously, there's probably more examples that some of you might have. On the FAFSA form, there is not a place for you to write anything or list any concerns you might have. So what you'll have to do after you submit your FAFSA, fill it out with all of your 2021 tax information. Even if one of these situations did happen to you, still use your 2021 tax information. Once that's submitted, at that point, if your student is accepted into that college, you would then call the financial aid office and ask for a special circumstance form. On this form, you can kind of list your situation. The more information you provide, the better. So try to be as open as you can be with this process. Provide them any documentation you might have. And then at that point, they can readjust your number. Doing a special circumstance form, just make sure that you have a realistic expectation. Obviously, we want maybe a full ride or maybe a lot more money. Just have kind of an expectation that they will adjust or they might not. So It's just kind of will depend on the college and what they can do at that level. And then reporting income on the FAFSA. So our financial aid insider, which I believe I sent some over, if not, I can. Those have kind of a breakdown of everything you need to do, but this is kind of just a brief overview here. But you want to include for income, your wages, your rental income, any interest or ordinary dividends, and then any cashed in pensions or IRAs, anything like that. What you will not include is any untaxed Social Security benefits, any SSI, disability, any veterans educational benefits, or any combat pay or housing. And there will be a lot of questions that will ask you this. Is not just one box you have to fill out, but this will be a process that you go through in the parent section of the FAFSA. And then assets. So there is a question that will kind of prompt you to this next section once you get to this part in your form. But what you will include is any cash, checking, or savings account as of the day that you fill out the FAFSA. Any child support received for all children, that is changed this year. So that is a new change. Any stocks, money market, mutual funds, anything like that. Any equity of your non-primary residency. So if you have a second house or a vacation house, something like that, that would have to be listed. If you have any savings accounts for college for students like a 529 and up on my account, those will also be listed as assets. You do not have to include your primary residency, any qualified retirement savings plan. If you have a small business with fewer than 100 employees, that does not have to be listed as an asset. And then any personal or household goods do not have to be listed as an asset as well. We recommend always speaking with a financial advisor. We are not that, but we help you fill out the form. So you tell us exactly what to write in those boxes. So we can't help you in any way. So if you do have questions or not sure how much something is worth or what you have, definitely speak with a financial planner or financial advisor to make sure you can get everything accurate. So when you fill out this form. And then the CSS profile. So again, this is not something that every single student will have to fill out. Only about 200 colleges and universities in the country require it. And again, these are schools that usually have a super large endowment or are highly competitive schools. This usually is a requirement for them. Students will already have access to their CSS profile because they've taken the SATs. So it will be your College Board account that you already have access to. The student already has a login. They will use that to get into their CSS profile. Unlike the FAFSA, the CSS profile does cost money. So depending on your income levels, you could automatically be given a fee waiver code. If not, it is $25 for your first school and then $16 additional for any other schools. So if you don't have to fill this out, don't fill it out. Save yourself some money there. Okay, so when is the deadline to complete this? Again, there's no set deadline for the CSS profile. This will vary from school to school. And like I was saying earlier, that these deadlines are a lot earlier than they have been in past years. So making sure you're doing your research as you're getting into the applying season. Tax year information, you will also be using 2021 tax information. They also include 1 year back and then 1 year forward. They'll have you predict. So they do require a lot more information. They kind of look at a 3-year span, unlike the FAFSA that just looks at 1 year. And then the parents, the parents, you will do the same as the FAFSA. So whatever parent you list, or if you list both parents, we'll do that. Depending on the school, they can have you list non-custodial parents as well. So check in with the school, see what they're requiring of you, and it will vary from college to college. And then unlike the FAFSA, there are areas within the CSS profile where you can write things. So one of the things is some schools, not all, will ask you additional questions. Just know that if one college is asking that, that is the only college that can see that information. That cannot be shared throughout other colleges. And then the special circumstance form is directly on the form. So again, provide the most information that you can. They might ask for additional requirements, documentation, or after they receive that. But in that box, make sure you can list and be as honest and open as you can. So for the financial aid offer letter, all of you are a long time away from this point. Again, depending on when you apply, this could be coming a little bit earlier for you, but this typically doesn't happen until the end of January, February, March. That's when you'll start receiving your financial aid offer letters. But before you do that, you might get calls for verification. So as I said before, a very common process that happens at colleges, and you'll just have to provide your tax transcript to these schools. You'll only receive a financial aid offer letter if you are accepted at that college. So if you know you're accepted and you're still waiting, make sure that they received your FAFSA. You can always ask the admissions counselor that you've been working with kind of when to expect this, and they'll tell you exactly what they need, if they're missing anything, or when you should be receiving it. And then, as I was saying before, making sure you're having a non-school email, because email is the main form of communications from these colleges. Some will still mail things to you, I'm sure, as some of you have probably got postcards or things in the mail and probably getting a lot of them. Once they start getting their financial aid offer letters, it's kind of, you don't know where they're coming from. So some might have it in the mail, some might have it in email, others will send you an email to create a portal. So just try to stay organized. Once you apply to the schools, just keep an eye on those emails that are coming in so that you can keep track of where they're sending your information. And again, you can always ask the college. Don't be scared to reach out and see how they do this if you haven't heard from them. But usually mail, email, or the portal is that is where you will see this letter. And then we'll go over we're setting up for the financial aid offer letter, but what you'll see in institutional aid usually is kind of all in one section on the form. As you start receiving these financial aid offer letters, you're going to realize that each college does things very differently, and it's really hard to compare because they all look so different. But in some way, you'll see kind of what the institution offers. So this could be your merit-based scholarship relisted. This could be grants or awards given out. So maybe you apply early action. There might be an early action grant or award that is given. Post-COVID, we have seen a lot of schools doing a visit grant. So if you went on a campus tour, if you attended an open house, something like that, they are giving out grants for that. So check in, see if any of the schools your students looking at has that. It's a good way to earn a little bit of money. And then also a lot of schools if you fill out the FAFSA, they will provide some kind of grant as well. So again, each college is different, and they will list out exactly what you got in kind of one section on your financial aid offer letter. And then if you received any federal grants, you'll see that listed as well. So these are the two most common that you would see if you were awarded any grants. The Pell Grant, you will determine right after you fill out the FAFSA, that amount will be listed on that form. And then the self-help aid. So all colleges, I shouldn't say all, most always assume that students are going to take out the federal student loan. So this is usually listed on your financial aid offer letter. If for some reason you don't need to take it out, or you're deciding not to as a family, just know that is something that you will have to add back in if they've already taken it off your kind of what you owe. A lot of schools will just throw it in there because it is at a fixed interest rate. It's solely in the student's name. They assume that students are going to take it out. But these payments start 6 months after graduation. And obviously there are different ways you can set this up. If you wanted to make payments while the student's in school, you can absolutely do that. There's no requirement to do that till 6 months after graduation. And then there are different payment plans that you can get into after the student graduates. And then if there was ever some loan forgiveness, or if you're in a program where there is loan forgiveness, the federal student loans are the ones that would be forgiven. Those are all the loans that are being forgiven now. And then there's two types that you'll see listed out. You'll see subsidized, where the interest is not accruing, and then you'll also see unsubsidized, where interest does accrue while the student's in school. So usually it's like $2,500 in subsidized, and then the remaining $3,000 is in unsubsidized. It will vary based on your financial information, but usually you do see a split with unsubsidized versus subsidized. And then your federal work study. So Schools also don't do a great job with this. They will sometimes subtract this from your tuition. So just know that that is not the case unless your student is cashing in their federal work study paycheck each week and bringing it to the financial aid office for student services and paying their bill. This money, I would kind of just think of it as maybe pizza money or book money, laundry money. Don't think of it as money coming off your tuition. The only way a student can get a federal work study is if it's awarded to them. And then that means that they have to then go on campus, find a job, and then work those hours. So you'll see them for all different amounts. It might be $1,000, it might be $2,000. Most of the time, students don't really work that amount throughout the year. So that is a lot of hours that the student would have to work in order to receive that full amount. So most of the time, they never really reach the max, but some students will. But again, that is just like a normal paycheck that goes directly into their bank account. So unless they're making those payments, just kind of take it off your bill. Don't really think of it as anything. Schools will have job fairs within the first couple of weeks of school, so you can easily find a work study position. If you weren't awarded a work study position, there are plenty of part-time jobs on campus as well. Each office has to hold a certain amount for work study, and then the rest will be normal positions available. So if you don't get awarded a work study, don't worry. If you do, that's great. It gives you a little bit of leg up to get a job on campus. But again, this money is not money that will come off your tuition, even though it might look like it on your financial aid offer letter. So this is an example of a very nice and organized financial aid offer letter. I would hope they all look like this for you, but they probably won't. But you'll always see these very similar things. So you'll have your direct expenses. So this would be your tuition and fees. Sometimes within this, you'll also see if there's like a tech fee, or if they're in certain majors, there might be an additional fee that's required. That is where you'll see those. Those are your direct costs to attend that college. Right near there somewhere, you'll have your indirect costs. So these are amounts that you will never have to pay the school fully for, but this is something to keep in mind and for planning and budgeting that your student will have to cover the cost of. So, their books and supplies, any transportation, miscellaneous things like that. Again, just estimate of what they think your student would need, but this will vary, especially if they have to go on an airplane to get to school, or if they really want to decorate their dorm, or they have to get certain programs or things like that. This number could vary from student to student. So just know they kind of put that in there so you can start estimating and thinking about that, but you don't have to pay that cost to the school. And then again, they'll show you kind of what you were awarded. That's usually all in one section there. And then that leaves you with your gap. So this is what you owe after your cost of attendance, and then any awards that you got. The gap is what you owe left to the school. So some schools will see as they separate it from fall to spring. Just know that that gap amount will also separate in half, the fall and then the spring semester. Any questions on the financial aid offer letter? And again, this is something that you still have a lot of time before you get to that point, and we have appointments that can help you kind of determine everything. But how to pay for that gap, what is left over after your cost of attendance subtracts any awards or scholarships that your student gets, what is left, that is what you owe. So how can you pay for that? One way is a tuition payment plan. So every school will offer this. It is set up through the financial aid office. There's no interest with this. There usually is a startup fee that you could get going with that, but just remember this is over the semester. So students start school in August, so you make payments plans from August to say January. You have a month gap, and then you start back up in the spring to finish that bill. So this amount can be the full amount. If you and your family can do that, you could say, I want to pay $5,000 for a tuition payment plan. Again, very flexible, and families can decide on what they want to do with that. And then the Parent Plus loan. Some schools will put a Parent Plus loan on the offer letters, assuming that parents want to take that out. This is not a decision for everyone. This is make sure you do your research, make sure it's the right decision for you and your family. With the Parent Plus loan, it's important to know that that amount that you take out will never be tied to your student. That is solely a parent's loan. So even after your student graduates, it's never transferred to the student. Obviously, you and your student can have a conversation and say, you're going to pay me this much each month in order to pay this back. But it'll never be tied to the student's credit. It'll never be tied to the student at all. It's only a parent loan. Again, some schools will add that in there. So if you are not taking a Parent Plus loan, make sure that you remove that off your financial aid bill. And even if it's on there, you still have to go in, you still have to apply for the loan, you still have to do all that. So if it's on there, they might say your gap is 0. So just know that whatever that Parent Plus loan amount is what you owe. But if you do decide to take that out, that is when you'll use the parent's FSA ID to go in and apply for that loan. And then most students will have to take out a mixture of all of this, but a private loan, a lot of students will have to take out. So I always recommend going over to credible.com. There you can fill out very basic information, financial information, and they will recommend some loans for you. Other ways to kind of check in is with banks and credit unions, things you're already a part of. They tend to have lower interest rates than some of these big name companies. And then Invest in You is a part of our loan, so it's a nonprofit student loan. In New Hampshire, students do get a discounted interest rate, so definitely check that out once you get to this point. So nobody should be applying for loans yet. You have a very long time before this process starts for you. So May 1st, your student will decide on which college they're going to, and that is the national college deadline. So you have up until that day to decide where your student's going to school. Then usually June, sometimes July, is when you'll receive your bill from the college. Once you receive your bill, then start this process. But until then, do not think about, you can start thinking about them, but don't be applying for loans. Don't be filling out any information. You have to wait until you get your bill in order to see exactly what the full picture is and how much you owe for your students to go off to college that fall. And in August, you'll have plenty of time to get this done. So, or July, whenever you get your bill. So don't feel, you'll have, it is a quick process once you get there. I promise you, you will have time. This is another really great tool. There's a QR code. We really love QR codes here, so you'll see them everywhere. But this is a college financing tool. This is a great tool if you have younger students, or once you start getting your financial aid offer letters, you can go in, plug in all your information, and it will go through if you have any savings, how that will affect what loans you take out, or if you can maybe say put $50 a month as a parent, how that much that helps your student. And then at the end, it will give you some loan options. And then it also shows what the student loan payments could look like for students once they graduate. So this is a really great tool. Again, once you have your financial aid offer letters, to see what that could look like for students. And it is an eye-opening experience for a lot of students once they kind of see the aftermath of those payments. And it's all free to use. You'll type in your email. It'll send everything to you, and then you can always go back and kind of play around with those numbers as well. And then searching for scholarships. So right now, there's not a whole lot going on. National scholarships are kind of the only ones that have money available at this point in the year. And we recommend using these websites here. There are plenty of websites out there, so definitely do your research and see what's available. You can probably find a scholarship for anything. There's so many out there. But just know you'll never have to pay for a scholarship. So if you're on a website and it's saying that you pay that money, they'll find these scholarships or anything like that, you're probably getting scammed. So don't pay money. Scholarships are free. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you're using a non-school email and that you're checking these emails. Some of them will be renewable so that you can renew them each year, so you don't want to miss those emails. And then again, just kind of see what else is out there. For local scholarships, do you want to talk about the process here?
In addition to those websites that were listed, the high school website has a link in the counseling page for scholarships. As Lily said, it's early in the year, so Not much on there right now, but as the year progresses, especially into the early winter and then into the spring, that will be filled with lots of opportunities to lower the cost of your education. A lot of local organizations, families offer scholarships to our students. In some cases, they're book awards or prizes, which means legally they're scholarships. Students receive the money and use it how to choose. Theoretically, using it towards education. But a lot of students don't bother applying. I think they just, for a couple of reasons, they don't quite get how much can benefit them later on because they're not paying back those loans yet. And in many cases, they just figure so many other people are applying and just don't have a chance of winning. And that could not be further from the truth. Just a couple quick examples to illustrate that point. The Boston Fire Department offers $1,000 scholarship forever. We've had years when we literally have one student applying that. Granted, for that one, you have to live in Boston, but that's one example. Another organization, Zonta Club in Concord, offers $1,000 scholarship, which this year been doubled to $2,000 for high achieving young women. Last year they had how many applications? One single application. The Odd Fellows, local civic organization that offers a scholarship every year, $1,000. All I have to do is write a short essay on the meaning, friendship, love, and truth. Last year, we had a grand total of 3. And that's specifically for a Merrimack Valley senior. Unlike a lot of those other national or statewide scholarships, these are local organizations looking to support education right here in Merrimack Valley. So the Masons, the American Legion, and on and on. Many families who offer scholarships and awards in memory of a loved one that passed away. So as the year progresses, I encourage you to check out that website, and you'll see the scholarship, the criteria. So whether it's open to all seniors or whether it's specific for one town, and then what type of student they're looking for in terms of academics, community service, volunteer work, leadership, et cetera, financial need. And then you'll see a link to how to apply at deadline on that website. So definitely get friendly with that. That website as the year progresses. And using that website should not include using some of those other resources as well. We just don't list all the nationwide scholarships because our scholarship page would be 25 pages long. So we try to keep it to mostly local and state scholarships.
And as Mark was just saying, students, really encourage your students to apply, or students in the audience do this. I know kind of as you get to that February mark, you're kind of ready to just be done with school, but just take a couple weeks and fill out as many as you can. It really does add up, even if it's just a $500 scholarship or $250, it does add up and it will save your future self. So do as many as you can with that. And then also check in with your work, your parents' work. I know if you work at Dunkin' Donuts or Market Basket, there usually is some kind of scholarship that's given out for students. So you never know where there is money. So always ask and see if there's any available or scholarships available. And then my favorite one is New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. So I highly recommend to every single student applying for this. The average award last year was $4,600. I believe this does open up in January. And then has a very strict deadline in April. So try to get in there as soon as you can. But this is very similar to the common application. You'll fill out one application, and then New Hampshire Charitable Foundation will send out your application to any donors you might qualify for. So definitely recommend having your student go over and check on this one. And they do support students who are going to 2-year institutions as well. So this is a great resource for everyone. And then at the NHEAF network, we also offer a scholarship. So once your student's enrolled in college, they can apply for more scholarships on our level. But we do have ones for high school senior. It's one scholarship. It is a speech competition. So if you're into public speaking, it's a really great scholarship for you. The award last year was $5,000. So it is a good amount. And your requirement will be going to our destination college event, which happens for juniors in the springtime. And you will give a 3 to 5 minute speech on advice you give them, kind of the process you went through. If you could redo it, what would you recommend to students? So if that sounds like something you'd like to do and win $5,000, then definitely be checking our website. That application will come out around January as well. And then kind of the next step. So I know this is a lot of information. But the first step you have to do is complete your process. So these deadlines, again, check in with your schools, make sure you're staying organized, see when everything is due. If you have to do the CSS profile, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. One thing about the FAFSA, and we're getting a lot of questions on this, is you can only list 10 schools the first time you do it. So I'm sure a lot of your students are applying to more than 10 schools. So what you will do is you will fill out your first 10, and it does not matter the order. This is always a question. You can list them in any order. The schools cannot see when they get it. So, or if they were the first time or second time you did it. So just put your top 10, wait about 3 to 5 days to log back in. You'll delete all the schools that you've listed and then add any remaining schools and resend that off. And again, there's a lot of misconceptions kind of around submitting your FAFSA. As long as you're meeting the deadlines, you're earning the most money you can, you're receiving the most amount you can. So just make sure you're making those deadlines. You don't have to go back tonight and fill it out, but within the next, I'd say October, November, you're in really good shape to receive and make all those deadlines. And then again, just making sure you're checking in to see what else the schools are requiring out of your student in order to apply there. And then, so if you need help with anything, you can definitely scan this code. This will bring you over to our Calendly link. If not, you can always feel free to give us a call. You can email us. Whatever works for you works for us. If you go onto our website, NHEAF.org, at the bottom, there's a link that will bring you over to our Calendly website as well. We do have some in-person appointments. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can come over to our office in Concord and we can have in-person appointments. But then the rest are virtual. And seniors, good luck out there. I know this can be a crazy time, so best of luck to you. Try to enjoy it. And then I'm here for any questions. So if you want to come down, if you want to raise your hand, whatever is best for all of you. But thank you for coming on this cold and rainy night. We appreciate it, and we're here to help you. So you're not alone during this process.
Does anybody have any questions for Logan? So.
That, you know, kind yeah. Good question. Yeah. I don't know. But then, you know, as a parent, today, but our child was are we good under or affect? So when we started seeing the down at team or still so then still we were and that will go in the last section of the at the possibly definitely at that point we could consider the class and that thought. Any other questions?
Thanks again.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks again for coming, everybody.